Now let's talk about Tua. And let's talk about how I'm looking at this contract extremely different than I'm looking at the Jordan Love contract. We talk about leverage, and I'm not going to go in detail because I've done it a couple episodes now, but the leverage is so important to have at the negotiation table. Sometimes leverage is the most important thing to have at the negotiation table, because if you have leverage, that is such a level up on whatever is being discussed. Tua lands a 4-year, $212 million extension with $167 million guaranteed. Now, like Jordan Love, a lot of this contract is based off potential. Let me first talk about why I understand and would have paid Tua the amount that they paid him. I understand when we took, which goes back to leverage. I understand that there isn't, if you don't pay Tua and you let Tua walk, or you try to get Tua's replacement, who is there that can produce the same way that Tua produced? I mean, last year he led the league in passing yards. I think he had well over 4,000 passing yards. Now, obviously, you can attribute that to having Tyreek Hill, who I think finished with like 1,700 yards. You can talk about having Raheem Morse. You can talk about Jalen Waddle. Yes. But you still have to get them the ball. And Tua led the league in passing yards. So I understand it's like, okay, if you don't want to pay Tua, who are you going to get? Who is out there that has shown the ability to produce the way that Tua is able to produce at his best? I don't think there's really anybody out there, nor do I think that there's anybody coming in the draft that has the same potential that Tua has. So in that case, I understand why you pay him, because there ain't nobody, which is the leverage that Tua has. My leverage is, you see what I've done, and who else, if you don't want to pay me and you let me walk, who else can do what I do? Same thing with Dak Prescott. I'm not going to talk about the Cowboys much of any in this episode, but Dak has a lot of leverage, kind of like Tua. If not me, then who? So in that instance, in that case, I understand completely why the Dolphins paid him this. I also know that you don't want to mess up, kind of like bringing in a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, a new coach. You don't want to completely restart an offense when your offense is still as good, as prolific as the Dolphins were. And like I said, just like it would be if you replacing a quarterback is the same level as replacing an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. You have to teach them your cadence. You have to, the quarterback has to get familiar with the receivers and the offensive line. It's just, if you don't have to replace a quarterback, you do not replace a quarterback. And the Dolphins found themselves in a position that you didn't have to. And Tua is still, I wouldn't consider him a top tier quarterback. He's still a good enough quarterback where if he's on your team, especially someone that's able to lead the league in passing yards, I wouldn't replace him if I didn't have to. So those are all the reasons. Well, I guess, and lastly, Tua isn't bad. Like, it ain't like we're paying a scrub. It's not like we're paying someone that led the league in interceptions last year, or someone that didn't have double-digit touchdowns. You're paying someone that is still a really good player. So, and those are all the reasons why I understand, and I would, if I were the Dolphins, have paid Tua what they paid him. Now, let me hop over the other side of the fence. Walk with me as I try to articulate why I would have hesitated and why I wouldn't have paid Tua as much as I would pay him. I talked about it with Trevor Lawrence. I also slightly talked about it when I talked about Jordan Love just now. You have to be very careful when you pay someone mainly off of potential, because there is obviously a world where they do reach the potential, but there's also a world where they don't reach the potential. And if they don't reach the potential, it looks bad on the organization, and it puts your organization back a lot, because it then affects what you can do in free agency. It affects what you can do with trades. It affects how you can build a championship caliber team. So obviously there's two worlds where after paying someone off of potential, it could work and it could not. When we talk about Tua Tagovailoa, the reason why I would not pay him for potential is because I've seen his history. You see, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have, he's been injured in the past, but he doesn't have an extensive history of injury. Jordan Love has been injured in the past, but he doesn't have an extensive history of injury. Tua has an extensive history of injury, whether we talk about back in Alabama and his early years, actually most of his career in Miami. There is a laundry list of, hell, he even has injury history going back to high school. There is a long list of injuries that Tua has dealt with his entire career. So you couple that with his size. You see, everyone wants to talk about Drew Brees. Everyone wants to talk about Doug Flutie. And everyone wants to connect. When you're talking about a smaller quarterback, same thing we saw with Bryce Young in the draft or pre-draft, in the draft, in his first year. When you're dealing with a smaller quarterback, everyone wants to look at Russell Wilson. Everyone wants to look at Drew Brees and say, that's their comp. They can be as good as that. Well, what happens when you're not? You get a season like we got with Bryce Young. Now, a lot of it with Bryce Young obviously was the pieces that was around him. Didn't really give him the best opportunities to succeed. But what happens when you're Tua and everything around you has given you the best opportunity to succeed? You have arguably the best offensive core in football. You have one of the best, most retooled offensive lines in football. You have an incredible mind on the offensive side of the ball when we talk about head coach. Everything that Tua has been given has been remarkable. Again, Tyreek Hill is widely considered one of, if not the best, wide receiver in football. Jalen Waddle is one of the best number twos in football. Raheem Mostert is one of the best running backs in football. Definitely one of the fastest, especially when we talk about Achane. So, you couple or you combined the pieces that Tua has had along with his size, which if we want to say, hey, that's Drew Brees, that's the next Russell Wilson, we should have seen success by now. But we haven't. In fact, there is still a strong narrative that Tua and the Miami Dolphins cannot win in the postseason away from Miami. In fact, there is a strong narrative that Tua can't get it done in the big moments. So you're paying someone for potential, which is mainly what this Tua contract is. But everything that we've seen bodes, we might want to hold off on that because maybe we've seen the best of Tua. And if we have seen the best of Tua, this is a terrible looking contract. Because if we've seen the best of Tua, if the best of Tua is lead the league in passing yards in the regular season or be amongst the league leaders in passing yards in the regular season, yet once you get to the playoffs, it crumbles every time, that is not a $212 million man right there. But again, I do understand why you would make the move. I understand when you have, the leverage. Tua had all the leverage because, again, there's nobody on the market right now that is as good as, that is as good as Tua or could be as serviceable as Tua. But getting on the other side of that fence, I don't think Tua has done anything to prove that his potential is higher than what we've seen. Especially seeing as though if we are talking about his potential being higher than what is seen, there has not been any evidence to bold that it's going to happen. Because again, this is yet another year where Tua has had a really good regular season. Now, yes, I think the one before was marred by injury when we talk about concussions and everything, but this is yet another year where Tua that had and Tua having a plethora of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Last year was yet another year where he didn't even. We can talk about the debacle of the ending of the year, which could have had teams going to Miami to play, but no, they couldn't finish it out. Then they had to go. They couldn't beat Buffalo at the end of the year, so they had to go to Kansas City, and you saw what happened. Now, this isn't me saying, this isn't me upset that Tua got paid. This isn't me saying that Tua didn't deserve to be paid. I wouldn't say that. I want to see every person get what they feel they're deserved. And obviously, he felt, as well as the Dolphins felt, he was deserved $212 million. Shouts out to him. This isn't me hating. This isn't me saying you don't give him that contract. This is me saying be careful of what that contract means now. And on top of that, I will be the one to say I don't think that what we've seen Tua, and honestly, I don't even know if his potential, because Tua has looked pretty consistent. I don't know if his potential warrants that type of contract because there's an extensive history of his potential being probably where it is now. And if you think that where Tua is now is worth all that money, then hey, I just don't. But again, I'm not the one handing out contracts. So, oh man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.